Hello, hello, hello. Hey, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? It's on kind of low, but we want to try to. We've got a busy schedule for the evening, and I think the sooner we get started, the sooner we'll be finished. Does that help better? I have to keep it in my mouth and here. Why don't we get seated? We can maybe get started if everyone's ready. We're going to try to get the microphone to get up a little louder so everybody can hear. So it'll be a minute or so. How's this? This is any better? Or is it still too low? Stick it in my mouth. How about this? Better or not? Oh, he hasn't come in yet? Okay. You want to do the slides then? Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Is everybody ready to celebrate? Sounds like some of you already started, for sure, which is good. But welcome to the State of the Watershed District meeting. This is for 2024, and an important milestone for the Watershed District because it's our 25th anniversary. So my name is Steve Schmaltz. I'm the president of the Forest Lake Association for 2024. And we appreciate the community members and all the partner organizations that are here tonight and that have supported us over the past 25 years. Thank you for being here tonight and helping us to celebrate. Before we move into the agenda and the other speakers, I'd like to share with you 3 accomplishments that the Watershed District is most proud of over the last 25 years. Here are some key dates to help frame up the progress the Watershed District has made. Starting in 1999, when the Watershed District was formed by the citizen petition and assigned the following mission, which is to protect and improve water resources through adaptive management and education of local stakeholders. Now, the early years were spent understanding our 49 square mile watershed district from a scientific basis, natural resources, where the water comes from, where the water goes, as well as the opportunities and the issues we faced at that time in the watershed district. In 2010, the final 6-lake TMDL study was completed by our engineering firm, EOR, and it indicated that the district water quality was declining and 6 of our major 8 lakes were already on the Minnesota Waters Impaired list, which most of you know what that means. So in Forest Lake, the largest lake in Washington County and the most widely used, while not on the Minnesota impaired list, was pushing up against the threshold of being impaired at that time. So moving on to 2011, the first 10-year management plan was completed with the goal of delisting all the impaired lakes by 2040, which was a very aggressive goal then, and it still is very aggressive. In 2013, our construction of projects, water quality improvement projects, started with the completion of the first major water quality project we did, which was Bixby Park iron enhanced sand filter, which was done in Forest Lake to help treat water flowing down into Comfort Lake. So that was the first beginning of the construction, only what, maybe 11, 12 years ago. So jumping ahead then to May 2024, we celebrated with the Bone Lake Association in May of that year the delisting of Bone Lake, which is the first lake to be delisted, and many of you were at that celebration, so thank you for coming again. Even better news at this time was that our water quality data on the other lakes that we're working on indicate that most of them are ready for delisting, and we expect the other 5 lakes then to be delisted probably in 2026, which is the next year we can apply for delisting. It's every other year. So we expect that we would have 6 lakes done by 2026, which is a good accomplishment. So that is our first accomplishment. If we change slides. To complete the listings of the remaining 5 lakes that are on the impaired list. So the second slide, or the second accomplishment that we want to work on is to achieve lake delistings with water quality improvement projects that are very cost efficient. And we do that by applying 2 principles, the Pareto principle and sequential diagnostic monitoring. And let me tell you a little bit about what the Pareto principle stands for. It means that 20% of the possible phosphorus reduction projects available on an individual lake will give you 80% of the desired results. So all projects are not created equal. You have a lot of small ones and a lot of large ones. So what this tells you is that it pays to take a little extra time and use sequential diagnostic analysis to find the larger phosphorus reduction projects rather than doing a lot of smaller, high cost per pound phosphorus projects. And let me give you an example. What if the goal was to improve Forest Lake water quality by reducing phosphorus by 900 pounds a year going into Forest Lake? So if that was our goal, we could use a popular desktop computer system to find many small phosphorus reduction projects along the shoreline. And these projects, on an individual basis, would reduce the phosphorus by 1 to 5 pounds per project. Pretty small. But at a high cost of probably over $2,000 a pound. And if you got 900 pounds to remove, it gets to be quite expensive. The other opportunity is to take more time and use diagnostic monitoring to research far larger phosphorus loads. For example, a wetland that might be away from the lake on a farmer's property that was once a dairy farm, and that wetland has been contaminated by the phosphorus from the dairy cattle. So if you approach that project, you probably might eliminate up to 90 pounds of phosphorus in that one project at a cost way under $100 a pound. So you can see that's quite a cost difference, $2,000 a pound or higher versus versus $100 a pound, or even up to $500 a pound. So the lesson here is that not every project that you can work on is a good project. Search for the large, most cost-efficient phosphorus legacy loads, as we call them, and work on those to save the taxpayers a lot of dollars but also you save them dollars, but you also compress the time. It takes a lot of time to do a lot of small projects. If you can do fewer larger projects, you're going to cut your time way in half, and that's one reason why we were able to beat that 2040 deadline that we had set by doing those two things. So if we go to the third accomplishment, we are most proud of our leveraging grant dollars to further reduce the cost of local water quality projects to the local taxpayers. In the last 10 years, the Water District has won over $5.2 million from the State Clean Water Fund. And this equates to approximately a 70% reduction in the cost of the project for the local taxpayers because we've got state grants coming in. And the other reason we won't have won so many grants is because many of our projects are very, very cost-efficient projects. And the state likes to spend money on cost-efficient projects, so the two go hand in hand. So these three learnings, I think, are quite important and something that can be replicated, whoever wants to try to do those types of things. So finally, I'd like to recognize and thank the people and partner organizations supporting the progress the Water District has generated. Go to the next slide. Back one, please. Staff slide would be good. Behind any successful organization, credit first of all has to be given to a strong, skilled staff and the leadership they receive. So the board thanks and appreciates all the contributions of our current and past staff that they make day in and day out. You are a small team dealing, as you can see, with a very large and unpredictable Mother Nature. Each of you has to be flexible and creative, in addition to having a strong professional skills in your area of expertise. So we want to thank our staff, past and present, for the contributions you've all made. I want to encourage the audience also to take some time to try to meet one of our staff members. They have gray shirts on. I think you're going to find it very interesting how sharp these people are and the knowledge they have and how much you can learn. So maybe try to go to one of our site tables over here, or maybe have dinner with one of them and ask them what they do, and I think you'd really be surprised by what you'll learn and how impressed you'll be with our people. Finally, our engineering firm EOR and our legal counsel, Smith Partners, are on this list because they are very long-term contributors to the success of the organization and are very important to our team. So we want to thank them for the past efforts, and we've been fortunate to have both of these partners for most of the watershed's life cycle, so that's good. Last but not least, a successful product staff is the leadership they receive. The board has been fortunate to have Mike Kinney as our administrator since 2014, and continuity is really important. Mike is talented at both hiring good people, leveraging their expertise and skills for the Watershed District, and providing opportunity to develop or strengthen other skills for their career development. Thank you, Mike, for providing both leadership for staff and for in the technical area. Moving on then to our last slide. Second last slide is the board itself. And these are our current board members, and we've been fortunate again to have a series of board managers that have been devoted and loyal and dedicated to improving water quality, but also committed to the most cost-efficient manner to achieve those benefits. So as you know, we represent different areas. So Washington County is represented by myself. I've been here since 2014. Christopher Loth since 2021, and Dave Bakke since 2021. And representing Chisago County is Jackie Anderson. Believe it or not, it does say 1999 on there. And Assistant Treasurer Doug Taves, 2021. Past members, by the way, who have really been involved early on and served multiple terms are John Spence, who's here tonight. John, you just raise your hand. And I think Wayne Moe's here, and Jan Oak. I didn't see Jan, so she couldn't make it tonight. But they deserve a round of applause also for the many years they served. Thank you. And going back to Manager Anderson, not only has she been serving since 1999, she's been very influential in getting the Watershed District set up. And she worked, I think, several years before that through the WMO and some other things to get this whole thing started. And she's our next speaker to talk about the early years of the watershed, which I think you're going to find very, very interesting. I've got one other chart I want to go through here, and that is the recognition of our other partners. So counties are very important to us, and I saw Fran Murins here representing Washington County. Thank you, Fran, for coming. And Chisago County, the commissioners have a meeting tonight, but I think we have a number of staff here from Chisago County representing Chisago County, so thank you for coming. Cities are also very important because we work very closely with them on projects. So the city of Forest Lake, we have Leif Erickson here. Leif, raise your hand. He's on the city council. City of Wyoming, the mayor, Lisa Iverson. Did Lisa make it tonight? We have other people here, I think, from Wyoming also. And the city of Scandia, council member Mike Lupke. So lake associations, thank you for coming. Lake associations. We've got Tom Ferry, president of Bone Lake Association here, plus other people from that group. On Comfort Lake, we've got Dick Berglund, which is also from the board of managers for Comfort Lake Association. And Forest Lake, we have Jerry Gruntner, who's our past president, who served for 7 years. And that really is a commitment. 7 years is our president. He looks so happy because he's not president anymore. Thank you, Jerry, for all this years of service. Yeah, we have a lot of other members, as you can see here. In terms of, I just want to mention, Bowser is a really important partner because of all the grants we get, and they're also on the agenda to speak tonight. Assistant Director of Regional Operations is Justin Hansen is here tonight, and then also I also want to pay respects to Dave Fabian, who's here, and I mean Dan Fabian, who served and worked with us in the watershed with Bowser for many, many, many years. And Dan retired, I think it was last year or the year before. Dan, thank you so much for all the help and guidance that you gave us. We appreciate it. And that should pretty much do it. We have many other civic organizations and community groups. And later on in the program, we're going to be trying to recognize some of those contributing public members. We've got, I think, 4 water champion awards that will be awarded after dinner. We hope you can stick around. I think you'll find it interesting in terms of the kinds of projects that they've been involved with. So with that, thank you for coming, and I'd like to introduce Jackie Anderson. Manager Anderson is going to talk about the early years of the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District, and this is not the typical way a watershed district is created, so they all don't have to go through this much work. Manager Anderson, thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. You know my name by now, and I hate to correct you, but I have to do it for the record. I actually did not start on the board in 1999. I had just started a business in 2008, and so I couldn't, 1998, so I couldn't be on that first 3-year term. So Lou Sibic, who was the president of the Comfort Lake Association, and I forget his first name, Ken Banta, one of the farmers that I worked with in the early years, served on that first 3-year term. I took that term in 2002. So, but before that, there was the beginning. And so I'm here to talk about the origin story. And it was a 7-year travail getting from that first spark, and here it is on the board. I'm not going to try to read all of this to you, but the highlights are in the bold. There was a farmer. I was at a, can we go back? This isn't set on a timer, I hope. I need somebody that's going to actually direct the, yeah, there we go. Mine already went up, so. Okay, so anyway, I had decided that I wanted to be more active with government. We live in a democracy, and I think that's part of what we need to always do and consider. And so I started out on the planning commissions in Wyoming Township. We were a township then. And the township did their own zoning. And so I started there. In 1992, I was at an actual board meeting with the town board, listening to the different things that they take care of, and thinking about running in 1993, which I ultimately did, for the town board. And on that evening in 1992, a farmer from Wyoming Township, he lives on or used to live on Highway 61, he's passed on, and that is right at the county line for Washington, the north part of Washington County, and the southern part of Chisago County. And he was complaining very angrily about the fields on his farm flooding, his hay fields, and he wanted the board to do something about that. Well, the board, unfortunately, had to tell him that they had nothing to do with ditches, and so sent him to the county, and the county discovered that the joint ditch board between Washington and Chisago County hadn't met in 20, I think it was a little past 20 plus years. And so it took a few years for that all to, or months, for that to all come back together again. But it really wasn't longer than 4 years when, after having a surveyor go out and look at what was happening and why there was all this excess water, to find out that what really had happened is the city of Forest Lake and the township of Wyoming were growing. This was in the early 90s, and there was a lot of building going on, a lot of farms being sold, and turning into housing developments. And so that's what was happening, is that pressure from moving from farm fields to community field, residential homes basically, municipal type settings, was putting pressure on the system that was used to convey the water out of the farms, which are a lot wet areas, downstream, and it was overloaded. It was just overburdened. Next slide, please. So what ended up happening, I wanted to show you, these are actually map areas that have come out after the district was started, but it shows you really some important dynamics that nobody knew about before the district started looking at this. And you can see on the left, can you blow that up a bit so we can see the red circled area better? You can't? Okay. Well, anyway, if you can see up there, that's the district that we live in. And what is interesting about all of this is that we have so much water, and you can see with all the blue lines, those are actually the rivers and streams that end up in our rivers, our major rivers, and our lakes. Over on the right side is the breakdown. I think Mike's going to talk about this more. So we needed to understand what the flow of the water was, and so this is one of the maps that shows that. And we're talking about this area up in the upper left. That's the Comfort Lake sub-watershed area. Next slide. And over on the right-hand side, it should be this map, Comfort Lake. Can you move it to the Comfort Lake Management District? There we go. When you look at this map, you start seeing some of that webbing that you saw on the bigger map of the Lower St. Croix watershed. And you can see how much of that area has been ditched. The red areas are man-made alterations to natural flow areas. And so we had a lot of water coming in from the city of Forest Lake, and I think part of that was township at the time as well. So that's what we were dealing with. Next slide. Around that same time period then, in a couple of years later maybe, Comfort Lake residents were reporting for the first time particulate matter in the water column. Comfort Lake had been listed as the cleanest, pardon me? Oh, he's talking, okay. I thought he was talking to me. Had been listed as one of the cleanest lakes in Chisago County. And there had been, at that time, no algae blooms in late summer. It was perfectly clear down to 11 feet. Just a beautiful small lake of about 200 acres. And so it was under stress. And so the Comfort Lake Association, which had just started a couple of years before, became very active. We didn't know what had happened. So we didn't know all that stuff that I was just talking about on those maps. It was just shock and what happened and why this beautiful lake all of a sudden wasn't so beautiful. Next slide. I should have started out with this, but how many people have seen the movie A Perfect Storm with George Clooney? Have you seen it? Yeah. Okay. Well, this is what this ride was like. Because one thing came at you and then another thing came at you in different directions, and all of this was bubbling up to the surface. And the biggest thing that we eventually learned was that Walmart came to Forest Lake in the fall of 1994. The MPCA issued what's known as a national, or I can't even say the acronym, but it's a National Pollution Discharge Elimination System Permit. So NPDES. I'm going to use that in the future. And so what happened is that there was a local contractor. A lot of dirt had to be moved, a lot of soil had to be moved, the site had to be prepared. It was a wetland along Highway 35, and there was just a little bit of commercial development happening at that time. They were one of the biggest, of course. And because the MPCA knew that the Sunrise River and Comfort Lake would stand a possibility of being impacted, they were charged with making sure that that didn't happen, putting all of what's called BMPs, best management practices, in place to handle whatever discharge might come off of that property down the system of, again, a ditch, and then end up in the Sunrise and Comfort. You'll see the little footnote on the bottom, or excuse me, I missed over that, or went over that area about the notice. This was really the telling part too, is that a notice of violations was sent by the MPCA on December 20th, 1994. The permit was issued around September of that year. And monthly notices were sent out through May 10th of 1995. So we're talking about a long time when there was obvious non-compliance with the rules and regulations. And this went on through, like I said, May 10th of 1995. The MPCA notified the two contractors that they were going to have a cease and desist order sent to them if the violations were not taken care of by May 23rd of that year. And obviously that didn't have to be sent because the violations were finally resolved on March 19th, 1995. But we're talking about almost a full year of bad behavior taking place. And this is when we started to realize, of course, where that sediment was coming from. The disruption of the carrying device, which was the Sunrise River, because it was holding too much. It was holding too much water. So the Comfort Lake Association, like I said, was very new, only a few years old. Very active, however, very motivated to restore this what once was a beautiful, clean lake. So they sued. There were some missed dates and all of that kind of stuff. It was very complicated. We won't go into that. But what happened is the MPCA ended up settling, that's the next slide, ended up settling on May 21st, 1996 for $12,203. Half of that was designated to go to the city of Forest Lake to fund a diagnostic study of Comfort Lake and its tributaries. So that's really where the first science was introduced into this whole big mess and trying to find out what happened. The diagnostic study, I don't know if he's here, I didn't see him, but Steve McComas, are you in the room? He is a scientist, a water scientist, has his own company, Blue Water Science. For years he was known as the water doctor and the lake doctor, and so we felt very comfortable having his expertise helping with this. Mayor Ray Daninger and myself were appointed as the co-chairs. And we started that process. It took 2 years to get the study done. And from that, of course, the finding was that excessive amounts of untreated stormwater and other pollutants were being released through the joint ditch system and its tributaries, and that's what created the damage in Sunrise and also Comfort Lake. Do we have the next one up, 1997 to 98? Okay. After nearly 2 years, it was clear that oh, I missed one. Okay, yeah, I skipped over one. During this time, the other thing that was happening, remember the farmer that brought this all to light? Okay, well, the farmer actually had spent a lot of time and money fighting this legally, of course, and the Joint Ditch Board was also spending a lot of time and money actually trying to figure out what happened. And so when ditches are looked at, the people that go out to do the assessments are called viewers. And so these viewers have to look at each independent property in order to determine the benefit that they derive from the ditch. Well, as they got out in the field, what they were finding, of course, is that this was not agricultural rural area anymore. This was urban area development. And so what happened is the ditch board declared that it was a non-functional ditch and it should be turned over to the municipalities to take care of as stormwater. The Minnesota legislature got involved in this, of course, and they abandoned the joint ditch system and returned it to a natural waterway and reverted to the Sunrise River. That was placed under the Minnesota DNR control. So we no longer had a ditch there. Nobody really knew what to do about that status, but now it became part of the control of this agency. Part of the legislative settlement on the ditch closing was that the farmer agreed to bringing his, or allowing his farm area to be perpetually flooded as needed by Washington County. And so he turned it into basically a holding area for that water. He did exclude his homestead acreage, of course, and we got to stay there. I think, Fran, were you on the Joint Ditch Board at that time? Okay. Wyoming Township and FLOMO, which was the Forest Lake Water Management Organization, anybody here from that organization? No? Thank goodness. They wouldn't have liked this, but because they had been around for about 14 years, and they were very well respected at the state level, and they did not want to see the end of their organization. But at first, starting down this road, we had to join the FLOMO in order to, meaning Wyoming Township had to join, so that we could manage the water. We had a body, excuse me, that would manage the water. So that's what happened next. And the next slide, after about 2 years of trying that, it was very clear that the NUMO, as it was named, and MO stands for Management Organization. W is water, so is Water Management Organization. Now this is a structure that's allowed by the state, but it has some guardrails that really don't make it ideal for situations like this. The entities have to budget, but then rely on their communities to provide them with the budget dollars. And sometimes that doesn't always work. Now here we come again with the perfect storm element, in that the city and township of Forest Lake were at odds over annexation. And this was going on for several years, and there were petitions from the citizens of Forest Lake Township to form or to annex into the city. They wanted to be part of the city with city government. and city services. And the people from Flomo did not want to do that. The people on the board for Forest Lake Township did not want to do that. And so there was a competing petition to not merger. So this all had to go through court. So this was going on at the same time that all of this flux in how to manage the water, starting out over here in the Forest Lake City area and then into Chisago County. And it finally ended up that these courts went with the citizen petition, and so the township was annexed by the city. So at this point, I just want to point out that as we moved toward forming a district, and we came up with the name Comfort Lake, Forest Lake, Watershed District, Forest Lake had nothing to do with the biggest lake in our area, Forest Lake. It was the city, because we were always, you know, trying to work with the city to get solutions. Now, of course, it's generally accepted that it is the lake, and we're happy to be that as well, because Forest Lake obviously is the jewel of the biggest lake in Washington County, and a very, very used lake. So that's a good thing. Okay, so we ended up then having to start a district. This is actually what really happened, is that Bowser, I think his name was Jim Hartle, he's retired now, but Jim called me and said, this isn't working, we're going to need to start a watershed district. How do you do that, I asked. He sent me all the paperwork, and it starts out with a petition. And so in 1999, pretty much close to the beginning of 99, are we there? Yeah. So it was pretty clear, like I said, the NUMO wasn't going to be working. We can't raise the money that we need to start aggressively treating the damage that it had occurred already, and really to put in place a structure for these growing areas that were turning from agricultural and rural areas into cities, you know, and towns. And so that was really the objective. So Bowser, you know, guided how to do this. Also said, as the last paragraph indicates, that the district structure is a separate entity. It's a special unit of local government with taxing authority. Now half the room's gonna say, oh, that's bad. And half the room is going to say, oh, that's good. And if you're interested in keeping water clean, you have to do this. And the board members are appointed. We are not elected. The legislation that governs watersheds was written in 1955. This part has not changed. It was decided at that time that in order to do the work on the waters in Minnesota, you had to be outside of that political realm. And so the managers are appointed by the counties for 3-year terms. And that's how it works. And our focus is singular. And believe me, after working on a urban town, you've got roads, you've got septic systems, you've got everything to worry about. But when you have a single focus like this, it is amazing what you can accomplish and what you can do when you're not afraid to lay it out for the public on what needs to be done. And when you know how quickly a lake can be damaged, when you're not using best practices for building and changes that are occurring on the landscape. So it's absolutely critical. So obviously we're taxpayers within our own boundaries, and so we don't want to overtax, but we want to be smart about it, and we want to have, as Steve was mentioning, we want to have the structure in place so that we can be accurate when we do projects, and we know that we're going to have good results. So the final step of this is that we worked closely with the Comfort Lake Association, local farmers, concerned citizens, and with the support really at that time, by that time, of all the local governments. And the petition, we received more names than we needed to have by about 25%, and so that was good. We also received letters of support from every county, or both of our counties, and every municipality and township within the boundaries. And so the state understood that we had commitment from our local, what would become our local partners in this. And so that was really, really wonderful. Next slide. So that's really sort of the beginning, origin. You heard how that all happened. We had many different sources of input. Not only did we have the farmer and the ag perspective, but we had lakeshore owners and who witnessed the actual speed at which a lake can degrade. And so there was a lot of interest, obviously, in solving the problems as quickly as we can. Steve did a good job of telling you what our missions were from the beginning, and that was to use the taxpayers' money wisely and use business techniques that are used to approach problems strategically, so that you're always going after the largest pollutant loads first in our situation, so that we are showing the public how you can really achieve turnaround on a lake that's damaged when you use good scientific principles. And that's really what happened. Now there's just a few things here on the beginning years, 1999 to 2012. We had all of that trauma, you know, for 7 years, getting to having a watershed district. And there were still things that we had to work on after the district started. And these are four of the main things, and then a couple of thank yous that we want to make sure we provide. The district had to petition the legislature to be considered a metro district with full levy by budget authority. And this was around 2007. And when we started, Chisago County was not part of the 5 counties that were considered metro counties. And that's where you don't know where the division lines are between the cities in the metro area. And so they operate on a budget style, and by that I mean they come up with a budget and plans. They also have to do 10-year plans, comprehensive plans, and then budget yearly, and they are able then to go to the citizens within their boundaries for those levy amounts, and that's what we do. Okay. The foundational studies on the watershed, we had to spend probably the first 3 to 4 years doing very comprehensive studies on the water flow. Those maps that I was showing earlier, that's the result, is how can we handle this big area here. There's many watersheds beyond 49 square acres, by the way, but you've got to break it down. And so that's what happened. We followed the water flow. We came up with 4 major basins, which are the lakes, which is where the water comes to in each of those sub areas. We also made the decision to start at the headwaters, which is in the Bone Lake area. It was actually kind of perfect because the feeding lake to Bone Lake in Washington County is Moody. And by tackling the Moody problem, which is mainly agricultural related, we were able to have, I think it was 65% improvement in Bone Lake with that one single project. That's what prioritization and the Pareto rule is all about, the 80-20 rule. So those worked great. And on point number 3, Steve's talked about these already, but we knew we wanted to do it differently than we had seen other districts and heard of other districts doing things, and that worked for us. The other thing that was just absolutely a light bulb going off, maybe 10, maybe 1,000 at one time, was the legacy amendment. When that was passed in 2008, it took a while for the state to figure out how to handle this new tax that was coming in. And one of the 4 areas that it was directed to was water, clean water. Clean up our rivers, clean up our lakes in Minnesota. And so that became, as Steve pointed out, just this wonderful source of grant dollars so that we could produce results much more quickly than we would have been able to do if we had to rely on just year-to-year budgeting. The other thing we wanted to do today is thank Forest Lake City. So even though they were maybe part of the problem, slowdown problem at the beginning with that big Walmart project, they ended up being a really phenomenal partner. And for the first 14 years, we had free rent. Now we didn't need a lot of space, a couple of rooms and a little meeting area, but we got that at no charge from the city of Forest Lake, and we're eternally grateful for that because we were able to take that money and use it for projects and programs. And then finally, thanks to all our local partners for including us in project reviews of their permitted projects before we had our formal rules in place. And that took us until 2008 to do. So all along we knew what the objective was, and that's to improve the waters, and it's handled primarily through managing land use changes. And so that includes building permits and that sort of thing. And we're so grateful that they were able to meet with us and our expert water engineers and provides water quality benefits in most of the projects that we started to do. So there you go. That's the energy, or the origin story. Next up on the speaking roster is our administrator, Mike Kenny.
I'm going to see if I can get this untethered, and so since I like to speak with my hands a little bit as well. All right, we'll try to move along. Thank you, President Schmaltz, Manager Anderson. I'll just note that most of the staff is wearing gray, but Mike Sandiger, he's back there. He's a permit coordinator, and myself, we did not get the memo. We're wearing blue and teal. But other staff, I do encourage you to reach out, talk to them. Blaine does a lot of the monitoring as well. Tori is our office manager. Let's see, Adam's back there, education outreach person, and of course, let's see, Aiden is around someplace. He does a lot of our lakeshore and if you want your lawn soil tested, things like that. So, all right. Let's see. Button's not working. So, this button. Okay, there we go. All right. Well, we saw, basically the political boundaries, and of course, watershed districts, based on watersheds, don't follow, artificial units of government boundaries. So, and well, I think we talked most of the history, but maybe in the more recent things, the TMDL, the rules. Starting a great partnership with the St. Croix Watershed Research Station, doing these paleo cores, because with the Watershed District had established their goals for water quality, or the state, of course, has their state standards, but then the Watershed District had wanted what they thought to be cleaner or better standards for improved water quality. But it was like, well, were the lake systems historically capable of that? So the St. Croix Watershed Research Station took sediment cores and could use that, basically do climate reconstruction through diatom reconstruction and other sampling data mechanisms. And so they they affirmed for us that our goals were realistic. And so that's the thing that we've been working on towards over the time. So, and of course, the land was being managed historically by other people prior to the European settlement and the land conversions that occurred during those years, but it was a different type of management. And Comfort Lake, Forest Lake happens to be in this unique area where the prairies, the maple basswood ecosystems, and the northern plains kind of all converge into this general area. So it's, from a ecosystem standpoint, it's a very, very interesting location. So. So when we talk about meeting state standards for water quality, and so we have this prioritized, targeted, and measurable piece, or this words that we use a lot in our business, so to speak. the priority being then was the lakes. So, and as we're moving out of the lakes from in terms of improving from water quality as we're meeting the goals, that we're also then like, okay, well, flood mitigation, right? So there's that sustainability factor there. There's sediment, there's other nutrients, other things to continue to work on. But from a phosphorus standpoint, so often the state standard is this 40 micrograms per liter. So not that it's going to mean a lot to many people, but from a standpoint that, I don't, as you get into the lower numbers, it means it's clearer, and of course then in the other direction, you get to that pea green soup color, which several of our lakes were like, 12, 15 years ago or more, and for some of them, quite a long time. We could look at that historical data records, but also the sampling even back into the 1980s was showing that the water quality in some of the lakes were quite poor. So we talked about the Pareto. So that's if you're familiar at all, I started as a business major, and then I decided I really like this science stuff, and I switched over to that. But so it's an economic principle, often used in like Lean Six Sigma, manufacturing and things like that. But it's applicable to a lot of different areas as well. So you're trying to look at the data and analyze it from the perspective of what is going to get you that largest impact. So doing our diagnostic monitoring, which is different than just baseline lake monitoring. So that's one data set that we look at long term. But the diagnostic means that you start at these points where the water's flowing in, and then you start going around and upstream. So if there's 5 places where the water's coming in, and you go, the one is really high concentrations, high loading of nutrients, let's look farther up. And then the process as you look, it's high concentration, high loading, and then natural background. So what is between that natural background and that other piece? Well, one of the things we're finding out is that there's a lot of these abandoned, I wouldn't say abandoned, well, some are abandoned. There's one on Bone Lake where the farmstead is completely gone, but the manure was still in the wetland decades later. We were able to locate it through aerial photography, and then just going out there and getting access to the landowners. So thank you for all the landowners that have allowed us to access their properties and do projects. But that's kind of the general approach that we took in project identification. So it was that first couple of years first years took extra time in doing the diagnostic, making sure statistically that we were following the right path. And so, and of course, there's a lot of help from our engineers, EOR, and doing the analytics and things like that as well. So then the overall result has been, over the years, is just this. You see this improving trend line. So going from these higher averages down below the state. So we have the state standards is the upper line, and the district standard based off of those paleo core samples. Again, that's the district standard. So. And you can see now for Bone Lake, we're well below it. Here's an example for Comfort Lake, trending well below the state standard and the district standard, now our goal as well. And for Forest Lake, even though not impaired, it was trending statistically towards that impaired piece, and people were just saying, as residents, like, gee whiz, it's really green, get into July and August. You can only see a foot or 2 feet at most down, so, but that's not really the kind of vision I think that most people have when they live on a lake in Minnesota. I mean, they would like to see the bottom of the lake at the end of their dock at the very least. So, so we're seeing that. So just, there's a lot of data here, but just, so the two that say 2031 district goal, so those are the higher goals, if you will. So, but all the lakes right now are at or below the state standard, so we don't have a separate column there. But it's also, so we talked about these 6 lake TMDL, so that was the major lakes. There are actually 20 named lakes within Comfort Lake, Forest Lake Watershed District. And so that's one of the other challenges that we have. And again, thanks to all of you that supported the Legacy Amendment Act in 2008 that voted for it, that provided watershed districts like us the funding, because we are very rich in water resources from the standpoint of a lot of acres of wetland, floodplain areas and lakes, which then means it's a percentage of the land that you can't build on. So we don't have the tax capacity, so the grants have been extremely important from that standpoint. I guess we already mentioned, so here's these lakes that are already that we're looking to put forth in the next round for delisting. Moody Lake, we're just wrapping up a couple more projects literally this year, so we very expect that it'll be on the same list, so that'll be, it's certainly trending there right now. But there's also other things to keep track of. Sediment from many different sources, chlorides, that's another big challenge, because once that's in the lake, you're not getting it out. So that's the problem or the challenge there. Nitrates, both urban and rural areas, sources, septics, things like that. Those are all contributing factors and things that we're trying to keep tabs on, because they will provide their own level or source of nutrient impairments over time. So, all right, well, try to rub through that. I got Blaine Einecker here next. He's going to kind of go through a lot of the major projects that we've done in this last 10 to 12 years. So, and then we'll try to get everybody to their, well, we got Justin going to wrap up at the end, Hanson from Bowser, and then I think Steve's going to come back and finish up, and then we're going to have a break for dinner. So.
Thank you, Mike. So just wanted to take a few minutes to look back at the past 25 years and some of the projects that we have implemented as a watershed district. Here we have a map of the watershed district. The black dots are many of the projects that we've implemented over the years, primarily in the last decade or so. These include wetland enhancements, legacy load removals, as other folks have talked about, iron-enhanced sand filters, and alum treatments in some of our lakes to reduce the amount of internal loading from lake bed sediments. Others have talked about our sequential diagnostic monitoring and how we've identified many of these projects and how we use targeting to get the best return on our investment, and also how we implement a upstream to downstream restoration technique, getting the benefit of water quality improvements in the upper watershed and lower water resources. So I won't talk about that. I'll just dive into some of the projects. We'll go through them fairly briefly here, but just wanted to show you some of the projects and the benefits that the projects have. The first project is the Bixby Wetland Enhancement. This is a project that resulted in the reduction of around 206 pounds of phosphorus per year to the Sunrise River, and then another 93 pounds of phosphorus for Comfort Lake, that reduction. We also had a large reduction in sediment loading to downstream water resources as well. These slides are all oriented with a locator map in the corner there, so you can kind of see where that project is in the watershed. So I just also like to mention that 1 pound of phosphorus can fuel about 500 pounds of algal growth. So a 200 pound reduction of phosphorus is a major accomplishment for downstream water resources. And you'll see throughout many of these projects where we did have those big numbers, as other folks have alluded to, getting the best return on our investment. Next, we have the Target Stormwater Retrofit and Iron Enhanced Sand Filter. This project involved multiple components and included the Iron Enhanced Sand Filter, tree trenches, and a rain garden and drainage swale. It's completed in partnership with the Target Corporation and the City of Forest Lake. We have the Broadway Avenue Iron Enhanced Sand Filter, another project with the City of Forest Lake. It's consisted of an iron enhanced sand filter and settling ponds designed to treat stormwater runoff from the surrounding area. We have an estimated 33-pound reduction per year from this facility, benefiting the Bixby Park area, the Sunrise River, and Comfort Lake. Got the Sunrise River Highway 61 Wetland Enhancement Project. This is a more recent project. You'll probably notice it on your way traveling along 61 from Forest Lake up to Wyoming. This was a wetland enhancement to treat nutrient-rich waters from the Himes Lake drainage ditch before they enter into the Sunrise River. The project resulted in an annual phosphorus reduction of 89 pounds per year to the Sunrise River, and then that equals about 65 pounds of reduction for Comfort Lake. We also had a large sediment reduction to both of those bodies of water, created a lot of wildlife habitat as well as flood storage. Moving over to the Moody and Bone Lake area. The Moody Lake Wetland Enhancement. This project was identified through SDM as one of the most concentrated sources of phosphorus for the Moody Lake area. The district worked with the landowner and removed accumulated phosphorus-rich sediments from the wetlands, controlled cattle access to the restored area, and then managed water levels throughout the wetland. We have an estimated reduction of 445 pounds of phosphorus per year for Moody Lake. Also a very large amount of sediment that is reduced here through this project. So this was a very big deal for the Moody Lake sub-watershed. A more recent Moody project is the Moody Capstone. We just completed that this year. This was several small projects that worked together to reduce phosphorus loading to Moody Lake by another 58 pounds per year. You can see that there also nutrient-rich soil removals due to past land management around these old barns. So we removed those soils and got that material out of the environment there. Got the Northeast Bone Lake Legacy Lode Wetland Project. This is a wetland enhancement project consisting of the excavation of, again, manure-laden legacy sediments from a historic cattle operation. Mike Kinney talked about this project as well. You no longer see the farmstead on the landscape. It's just a wetland. You'd never know that the farm was there if you drove by it. This project removed around 20 pounds of phosphorus per year directly entering into Bone Lake. Next we'll move over to the Forest Lake area. We've got the County Road 50 Iron and Hand Sand Filter, another facility, newer facility as well. This is a multi-cell iron and hand sand filter treatment system designed to treat about 50% of the phosphorus loading from the Washington Judicial Ditch 6. Prevents around 97 pounds of phosphorus per year from entering into Forest Lake's third basin. Got the Shields Lake Stormwater Reuse Project. This project includes impounding and harvesting of water from a tributary to Shields Lake, which you probably know is connected to Forest Lake. And that water is then reused by the golf course for irrigation. This reduces the phosphorus loading to Shields Lake by about 85 pounds per year, and then that water that the golf course uses reduces their need for groundwater by around 26 million gallons per year. So a really nice project there, benefiting Shields Lake and then also downstream Forest Lake as well. We did an alum treatment in Shields Lake as well, but I'll discuss that a little bit later. Got another highly visible project along Highway 97. This is the WJ86 Western Tributary Wetland Enhancement. This project entailed the restoration of a degraded wetland habitat by creating 4 acres of open water habitat. It will prevent around 20 pounds of phosphorus and 3,200 pounds of sediment per year from entering into Forest Lake's third basin as well. Also created a good deal of wetland and wildlife habitat and 5.7 acre feet of flood storage for the area. And lastly, I mentioned alum treatments earlier. We've done a number of them throughout the area, and these projects are implemented to reduce the amount of phosphorus loading from the sediments in the bottom of the lake, so internal loading. You find that as lakes get depleted of oxygen late in the summer, those bottom sediments can, in some instances, release phosphorus into the water body there. So these projects help to reduce that internal loading. Moody Lake was completed in 2019. Got an estimated 325 pounds of phosphorus reduction for Moody Lake, and then also benefits downstream to Bone Lake. Shields Lake was completed in 2020. Got around 1,000 pounds phosphorus reduction for Shields, and that equals about 500 pounds downstream to Forest Lake, 500 pounds of reduction. And then Forest Lake is our most recent project. We did the initial dose in 2023, we're contemplating another dose based on data that we're collecting this year for 2025, and an estimated 530 pounds of phosphorus reduction for Forest Lake. So we've got lots of projects on the ground. This is just a few of them. We were able to implement these due to the amount of grants that we're able to leverage. From 2014 to 2024, we've been awarded $1.5 million in grant dollars to implement these projects, and a lot of that money is on the ground in projects right now, and it's improving water quality. Yes, sir. Thank you. 5.1. Sounds much better. All right, so we've got all these projects on the ground. How do we make sure that they stay functioning? And that's through our operations and maintenance program. So we do annual inspections and then annual maintenance to make sure that these projects are living out their lifespan and we're getting the amount of water quality improvement that we had designed them for. We also have a number of programs in the district to protect and strengthen the water quality achievements that we've already made. The next slide looks at that. And then we're moving forward looking at watershed resiliency. We're implementing projects and practices that will have multiple benefits, including flood storage, water quality improvements, wildlife habitat improvement, improving or enhancing wetland function, and then protecting groundwater. So the climate, landscape, and land use are always changing. So the finish line or our goals are always changing as well. Just a few highlights of the programs that we have in the 2024 budget and beyond. This isn't the entire suite, but a number of highlights that we do have. Things that are growing and evolving as the demands and priorities of the watershed change as well. So we've got a number of community partnership and education outreach and cost share grant programs available to help folks to be good stewards of their properties, of their local neighborhoods and whatnot. Got technical assistance as well as with grant dollars for homeowners, lakeshore owners, lake associations, and nonprofit organizations as well. We've got our education and outreach program. We've got a series of educational classes at our local libraries. Everybody's welcome to come to those, learn about stewardship and about the Watershed District and water resources. We also have a number of programs put in place to make sure that we're maintaining water quality, and that's our aquatic invasive species program to prevent aquatic invasive species from entering into any of our lakes and managing the lakes that do have AIS. Part of that is our watercraft inspector program, where we inspect boats that are coming in and out of the lake to make sure that we're not bringing any new AIS in, and also not sharing any of the AIS that we might have with other lakes. We've got a floodplain vulnerability assessment that we're working on. This is looking at flooding risk throughout all of our communities, and then working with local partners, municipalities, to mitigate for those risks, which could be improving infrastructure, altering infrastructure to mitigate for those risks. We do have a water quality monitoring program that we'll continue to do, and this is just looking at the trends in our water quality, making sure that lakes, streams, and wetlands are having good water quality, and if we see declining trends, then we can look to find more projects to make sure that we're maintaining or improving water quality. And then O&M, our operations and maintenance, which I spoke about, maintaining those projects, maintaining the water quality improvements or benefits that we're getting from them. We've got a regulatory program that looks at erosion control for construction sites, making sure that any disturbed soils are not exiting those construction sites and finding their way into our local bodies of water. Very important program that we have. And then we also have a land acquisition and management program looking at unique landscapes, trying to protect and restore those landscapes, in some instances purchase. We do have a new property that we acquired, the North Shore Trail Nature Area on Forest Lake's third lake. It's open to the public for recreation. There's a hiking trail, some access to the lake as well. So we encourage folks to come out and check that out. So these are all things that the district is doing. What can you folks do? One of the most important programs moving forward is our shoreline restoration effort. A healthy lake needs a healthy natural shoreline to stabilize the shore, buffer runoff, provide habitat, and prevent erosion. We'd like you to join us in this effort. We have technical assistance, shoreline grants, and incentive programs available to support the rewilding of your shorelines. Remember that a healthy shoreline is a resilient shoreline, and it can also be a beautiful shoreline as well. We encourage folks to protect this valuable resource because they're not making any more land. Once it's gone, it is gone. So if you are interested in any of these programs, you can reach out to Aiden Reed. He's in the back here. He's our land management specialist. He can help you with all these resources, answer any questions about the grants or any of the available resources that we do have. With that, I'd like to thank you for the district's part of the presentation here. If you have any more questions, feel free to visit our website or contact Mike or myself or anybody else at the district. We have Justin Hansen coming up. He's the Assistant Director of Regional Operations for the Board of Water and Soil Resources. So let's welcome him.
How about now? We doing better? All right. Wow, thank you so much for the invitation to come out and celebrate success tonight. My name is Justin Hansen. I'm one of the assistant directors with the Board of Water and Soil Resources. So what does a state agency guy mean to you, right? Like, I come from watershed districts, and I've been thinking and reflecting so much tonight on my experience. I came from the Cedar River Watershed District, which is in south central Minnesota. I've been with the Board of Water and Soil Resources for the last 2 years, but my roots are in local government. It's in the volunteers, it's in the conservation delivery system, it's in the staff, it's in the people that are participating in programs that help advance water resources. So my work, oh, here we go. Am I in control of this thing? Am I driving? All right. So Bowser's job, right? I have the greatest job in the world. I get to go around and do work with people that actually get the work done on the ground, right? It's to support you. 90% of my job is just making sure that others are successful. Can you imagine having a better job, right? This is what is fun and rewarding. I talk about my roots being in local government. So the map here shows all the different watershed districts across the state of Minnesota. And although there are many, right, that are sort of like you, there is not a single watershed district in the entire world that is exactly like you, right? You are your own community. You're your own water resource batch of people, right? Like this is community. This is what is so rewarding about this work, because you're the ones who make the decisions about what's most important to you, and it requires community to get things done. And so obviously it's terribly rewarding work to help and support you all. I was part of the Cedar River Watershed District when we formed. So Jackie, your reflections tonight have just brought back this. Am I cutting out? Put my hand down. How about if I just put it down here? Is that a little better? Are we getting a little better? Okay. Jackie, I was reflecting a little bit. So the watershed districts in Cedar started in 2007, and you said it started with a petition. And I know better than that. It starts with courage, right? And it starts with an uncommon determination to overcome so many barriers, right, that get in your way. Because when you're starting a new government that has taxing authority and the ability, right, to change your community, that is not always for the good. There is a lot of folks that are going to be worried that that's going to be for a negative impact. And so I want to thank you for those years of service, right? Because these things don't happen. You don't get to experience success without leadership. And I just want to say, so your origin story is important, and that was not that long ago. It's not super easy to start up government authorities in the late 90s, right, or in the mid 2000s for me. one of my first experiences, right? So I've been in southern Minnesota for the last 20 some years of my career, and when I came, the first time I met Mike, right? He came right up to me. I hadn't met Mike. I had heard of Mike, right? And I've been in the Watershed District world for a little while, so I had respect, obviously, for Mike and the work that you guys were doing here. But his introduction to me was, here's what we're doing. Here's how we've been effective. Here's how we can help you be better at the state, right? In doing your work. Accountability, right? That's what he was saying, is we have a standard of accountability at Comfort Lake Forest Lake, and this is the standard that we think Bowser can live up to. And that struck me, right, as we've been talking about the program tonight. Your programs and your practices are based on science first, right? Leadership, very first, right? But determination, leadership, accountability based on the science. You talked about the specific diagnostic work that you're doing. That's about as local as you get, right? Like understanding exactly where the biggest impact is going to be for the dollar that we spend. And so I appreciate that challenge. That is the standard. Accountability is the word. When I think of Comfort Lake Forest Lake, that's the word that I've been hanging around. And Mike, thanks for giving me the opportunity tonight to say that to your constituents, because you know, I bet there's not a lot of people in the room, right, that are making a lot of money being part of the Watershed District, right? There's probably a few staff. I bet there's some volunteers. Raise your hand if you volunteered your time on behalf of Water Resources in the watershed. Yeah, right. How many of you have actually participated in a project? Water resource yeah, right. And some of the people that have participated in the projects are also part of our leadership team, right? We've got some folks in the audience that are not just impacting your local water resources, but are having an impact across the state. Fran, I'm going to call you out because of some really important work that you've been doing on behalf of others, right? That there's clear leaders that know how to articulate what impacts you're having here and say, this is what we can do across the state. So you're creating a vision. 25 years, you guys we're all sort of in our baby steps, but you guys have laid down the groundwork. You have the people in place. You got the accountability to be successful going forward. So thank you for your success. Thank you for letting me share in your success. And I can't wait to come back and learn more about the projects, meet the staff and the board tonight. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, we're running a little late, but I think we covered a lot of information, so I'm hoping you've all enjoyed it and have learned a lot. We're ready for dinner now, so first of all, I just want to, we talked about what state is the Watershed District in, and or the watershed, basically. And you saw where we started out in trouble, and in 15, 20 years here, we've been able to move ahead, and we've got a lot of things under control. There's a lot more work to be done. But I think the watershed is definitely moving in the right direction, and I think it's with the staff we have and the partners that we have, if we continue to work with our partners like we've been able to move ahead even further in the future years. So I thank you all for your support and look forward for your continued support. Why don't we grab some dinner and come back to your table? One of the most important parts of the meeting is still yet to come, and that's to recognize our local people who are water champions, in terms of water quality champions, and the awards they've won, and a brief description of the projects they've worked on. So why don't you get your food, sit down, and then we can start that process, Mike, after everybody's settled, in terms of about 7 o'clock, what? About 7 o'clock or a little after 7, and we'll call you and let you know when we want to start. Again, thank you very much. See you later on tonight.
If anyone is interested in seconds, you can help yourselves. And we'll start the Watershed Champion Awards in about 5 minutes. All right, I hope you all enjoyed your meal. We're now to the fun part of the evening, our Watershed Champion Awards. All right, so if I can have your attention, please. The purpose of our Watershed Champion Awards is to acknowledge and honor those whose contributions to water stewardship have helped the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District achieve its mission of protecting, improving local water resources. These awards were first initiated in 2019 and have continued biannually in coordination with the State of the Watershed event. This year we have 5 very deserving Watershed Champion Award winners. We thank these award winners for all their contributions that have impacts today and will have continued impacts into the future on our local water resources. We also thank the individuals who have nominated this year's worthy award winners. So when I read your name, if you guys could please come up, Mike and Steve will have an award for you and we'll pose for a little bit of a picture, if that works. Our first award winner is the City of Wyoming. The City of Wyoming has continuously demonstrated cooperation and partnership in accomplishing water quality protection and enhancement goals within the district. Their strong permitting program, combined with their willingness to partner on water quality improvement projects such as the Enhanced Street Sweeping Program, the Sunrise River Highway 61 Wetland Enhancement, and the future Heath Avenue North Iron Enhanced Sand Filter, are all proof of their commitment and shared water quality goals. Thank you all. Our next award winners are Michelle and Tim Willard. The Willards donated a 3-acre easement that allowed the implementation of the Washington Judicial Ditch 6 Tributary Wetland Enhancement Project. This project will help to reduce 3,200 pounds of sediment and 20 pounds of phosphorus each year from entering into Forest Lake's third basin. It has also created a 4-acre open water wetland habitat for use by wildlife, and this project will also provide 5.7 acre feet of flood storage to help adapt to our changing climate and weather patterns. Next up is Patricia Berglund. Patricia has installed over 6,000 square feet of native plantings that have improved the health of Comfort Lake as well as an adjacent wetland. These plantings have enhanced wetlands, increased shoreline areas, and added quality savanna habitat. Not only has Patsy been dedicated to adding pollinator and wildlife habitat, but she truly understands the important role that these plantings play in the larger context of watershed health. Next up, we have Himes Lake Villas Homeowners Association. The HOA has gone above and beyond in maintaining their best management practices that were first installed in 2015. The practices include a shoreland buffer, infiltration basins, and a pond that was installed to treat runoff before it flows into Himes Lake. Their diligent and timely maintenance has kept the installations functioning as designed while providing excellent prairie and shoreland habitat. They have actively managed invasive species in their shoreline, buffer, and infiltration basins with enthusiasm, and they are actively working to improve their space for water quality and habitat, and have implemented a cost share grant project to reduce water usage during irrigation. And last but not least, Mr. Tom Fury. Tom truly is an inspiration to landowners, lakeshore owners, and environmental stewards in the Comfort Lake Forest Lake watershed. He has worked to reforest the shoreline of Bone Lake by growing and distributing trees and shrubs to lakeshore landowners. He is a volunteer water monitor, checking the water clarity and quality of Bone Lake. He actively participates in the district's Citizen Advisory Committee. He was crucial in planning, he was a crucial planning committee member and was the MC for the Bone Lake delisting celebration this past spring. Not to mention his critical role as a Bone Lake Association president. I'd like to thank you for your service, Tom. Thank you.
Once again, thanks for everyone coming. We've really enjoyed the meeting. I hope you have. We want to especially thank Adam Helm, who was organizing this whole operation, and all the staff who pitched in, especially at the last minute, to bring everything together. So thank you, Adam, and maybe staff can just stand up and so everybody can applaud them also. Thanks a lot. Again, we appreciate your coming. We look forward to working with all of you again in the coming years. So thanks a lot and have a good evening. Good night.